Hey everyone, it's Desiree, and I am here with day 3 of my 2020 Christmas series. So for this one, we're not necessarily going to focus on a company, but an idea. So for this video, we're going to create 4x4 cards. A lot of us make holiday cards, Christmas cards or whatever, and we make massive amounts. So sometimes looking at a smaller size card could make that process easier. There are many stamp companies that have those smaller stamp sets that are at a better price point. Maybe those are the ones that you collect and purchase for your collection. This is just another way to use those. So you can see that I have all of these different companies: Paper Roses, Honeybee, Penny Black, and Tailored Expressions. And then I even pulled in a embossing folder to make one of these cards. So we are going to make 5 cards. It's going to be a longer video. I'm showing all of the color. The video is sped up. And yes, there will be lots of gabbing along the way. So let's get started. So of course, we're going to use our card bases that are 4x4. I am going to use my Arteza colored pencils and my Arteza watercolor pencils. These are great sets. I think they are at a great price point for those that want to try this medium. You do not need to go into the Prismacolors and the Faber-Castells. Try it first. I also do believe that these are excellent products for somebody who likes to use colored pencils and watercolor pencils. So you can see I've taken my 4x4 piece. Now this piece was actually cut 3 3/4 by 3 3/4 panel because I do like to have mats behind my images. I just trimmed that down after I had embossed it through my machine just to make sure where the placement was going to be. I have another mat that's going to be cut 3 7/8 by 3 7/8, and then the final mat, the dark blue, was cut 4x4. So it will cut the entire front of my card base. I do like to cover the entire front of my card base, even if I want that background to be a little bit or have a color to it. This way, all of my bases can be the same color, white. I'm using a sentiment stamp set by Penny Black called Christmas Sentiments, and it's going to say Frosty Mornings. I think it's really cute, and I'm going to use my silver Recollections embossing powder. I get my silver, gold, clear, and copper mainly from Michaels, my local Michaels. I really like their fine detail. I think it is one of the best. I get a nice solid image. There's no breaks in it. I just don't have those differences. Even their snow, which is what they call their white. So that it is my favorite. So once that was heat embossed, I'm now going to put this on my mats, set that in the center. Now you can stop right here. Just use the embossed area. It is very visible. It's not like it can't be seen because it's on white cardstock. It is very visible. It's very etched into the cardstock. If you find your cardstock is cracking when you run through an embossing folder, just spread it, mist it. Don't drench it. Mist, one spray on each side. And then when you run that through your machine to emboss it, it won't crack. It'll actually just bend the fibers, and then just let it dry a little bit, and it would be fine. Especially if you're using a heavier weight cardstock. It's good to do that. I do it for every piece of cardstock, whether it's a 65 pound up to 110 pound. I'm using the my gemstones. Now, they are craft gemstones. I actually, believe it or not, I get them through a nail company because for other projects that I make and put in my shop, I move those. I just get them in bulk quantity. I think they're great. They are one size, and I do like the size. So you can see I added some silver in the back. Those dark ones are actually dark blue. I love that color. And then I colored the nose with my colored pencils just to give that a little bit of shading. So for our next one, we are going to use the penny black, and it's called Nature's Decor. For this one, I am going to pull in my watercolor pencils just to show how I work with those. What I love about this image is it is versatile. You could either just have it in the background and have a sentiment go straight across it. You can turn it into a full wreath, or because of the string that they have there, it's an ornament. You know, one of those nature ornaments. I don't know what they're called. Those big round ones, like the potpourri ones, I guess, with all of the ribbons. They're gorgeous. So I'm just mapping out where all of my pieces are going to sit on this 4x4 card. Here's the beauty of this. A lot of times we want, and again, you can have everything at a 90-degree angle, very symmetrical and so forth. But to make your images fit, again, this piece is going to be cut 3 3/4 by 3 3/4. That's going to sit on my 4" by 4" mat, because I do want that color going around it. We can set our sentiments off to the side. We can have them on an angle. We could stamp them on another piece of cardstock and then have them propped up onto this piece. Using a space 3 3/4 by 3 3/4, we can do so much, and you may be very comfortable with that. Sometimes having that large space can be intimidating to create what you're looking for. But remember, have fun with it. Give everything a try. So these are the watercolor pencils by Arteza. What I did was I used a very light ink. I used my Simon Says stamp Barely Beige. And I stamped that onto my cardstock. Now the cardstock that I am using, it is a Bristol cardstock. I actually use the Bristol Vellum. I don't see a difference between Bristol Smooth, so it works fine. I don't have any problems with it. I'm not quite sure what the difference is. If one of you know, let me know. But it works the same. So I'm using my colored pencils. I'm going in and just putting in those colors. You can see I've got this strip off to the side, and I'm putting my colors on that, but I'm really not blending it out yet. Now you can use a watercolor brush. You can use a brush with water, or I like to use a blending brush. So if you're somebody that likes colored pencils and wants to use the Gamsol to blend it, but don't want to use the Gamsol because of that whole concept of it being odorless and we shouldn't breathe it in, so how could we use it? Because it's odorless, we won't know that it's breathing in. That's my rationale. Just saying. This might be something to consider, using watercolor pencils, and when you go to blend them, I use a blender. A blending marker. I like the Stampin' Ups. There is a Dove blender that's actually refillable, and you can replace the nibs as you keep using it, and they are brush nibs. Stampin' Up, you can get 3 in a pack for $10, and there's 2 brush nibs on each side, which I think is cool. I like the watercolors as well because you don't have to be precise with your blending. Maybe you're not comfortable blending with colored pencils, but you really want to try them. Watercolors give you that ability because you can see that looks good, but there's no blending. Here's where the blending is going to come in, and all you have to do is just circle around. But what you want to make sure is you've got to clean the tip between your colors. So now that I did all the red, you can see how I'm just scribbling out onto a piece of scratch paper until it is clear again. Now I'm just going over the green, so I'm going to do all the greens, and I'm going to blend those colors. You do get beautiful blends with this, and it's very comparable, at least to me, when you use colored pencils and Gamsol. I do not use Gamsol. If I use a solvent, I use baby oil. The whole concept of odorless, shouldn't breathe in, just, I can't wrap my head around it. It's very odd. So that's what I do. If I do that, other than that, I love my blender pencils. So now I'm positioning my sentiment, I'm positioning the string that's coming down. I really like the way that that looks. I do make sure that's dry first before I come in and do all of this. I'm using my clear ink by Simon Says to stamp my images, and because it is Bristol paper, there is a slight texture to it. One side has more texture than the other, and I like Bristol. I even use my Bristol paper for my colored pencils. I like my papers to have a tooth so that the pigment will get captured from the point. I'm using my Recollections Gold for this image, and I'm going to heat set that. After that's melted, I will then place that onto my matte panel, but of course the vintage photo had to make an appearance. You all know, if you guys have seen my videos before, you know I am a fan of vintage photo. You know, people talk about their favorite things. I think vintage photo is right up there. I think it's my top favorite thing. I do like the look. Again, it's all about preference. I know that if you use vintage photo, it adds that concept of vintage. For me, what it does is it helps to frame the piece. It actually helps to pull it out. It helps to pull it above what it's sitting on, so that it can have that grand appearance. And I use it on any color, from pink all the way through the rainbow to gray. So it is very usable. So the next card that I am going to create, I'm using Paper Roses. Now, Paper Roses is a company that I really just noticed. I say noticed because I live in a bubble, I think. I just came across this year. I love all the companies, but I do like some of their images. It does look like they have a vintage undertone on a lot of things, which of course is what will pull me in. I do like that vintage concept, if that makes sense. So you can see I stamped my image a couple times. I'm using, and now again, I'm still on Bristol paper. I used my Gina K Amalgam ink. Now, I am using the Amalgam ink that's no longer available. I am very upset. I loved her Amalgam, but she does have an Amalgam Obsidian. So I am using a product there that is no longer available. For this image, I am coming in with two colors for the watercolors. Now you can tell the difference between Arteza watercolors to their colored pencils. The watercolors look like a pencil, like a number 2 pencil you would write with, where the colored pencils are a round barrel. So these are like a hexagon barrel, and your colored pencils are a round barrel. I'm making sure I leave a highlight area on these, because that will help to keep a highlight. And again, my highlight area always usually comes in from the right, and I usually keep all of that. So I really don't worry about the light source. I really don't have time. So I'm just adding in my color. When it comes to the watercolor pencils, I do use a light hand. They are very pigmented. Now, these are watercolor pencils, okay? So there's a pigment. Now, there is also a product out there that's called Derwent Ink Tense pencils. They are wonderful. There's a difference. They're ink. So there's a difference in the level of pigment. They could be more vibrant. I do like the vibrancy on these. For these, I did choose to use a watercolor brush. just to show you that, yes, they will work with a watercolor brush as well. I like the blender a little bit more because the nib's a little bit firmer. So as long as the watercolor brush, I do like to have a strong bristle when I work with watercolor brushes or watercolor pencils so that I can move that pigment. I cut a piece from my scraps, a piece of black and a piece of gold glitter paper, and that is what's going to go across the top. So it's almost like I'm creating this barrier, this mantle that these are hanging from. I'm going to, of course, clean my stamp, put that back into the packaging, and I'm going to grab my sentiment, and it says, "We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year." I do find that, now for me, the recollections do work very well for the fine stamps, the fine sentiments, and this was one. What helps is that you don't become Hercules pushing down the stamp, and no need to perform CPR. I need to learn that. I'm a very heavy stamper, and I just need to learn to be light with it, to not, you know, push the CPR. They're not trying to breathe, and if they are, I'm suffocating them. So, but again, you know, we all do that. It's not going to stop me from continuing this card. I absolutely love this card. I think it is adorable. I'm going to place this down onto a black mat. And I'm using that because of that band and that I stamped with black as well. Once that's on the mat, I'm going to set my band up with double-sided foam squares that I will cut down to size and set them in place, and then trim each of the edges so that I can get it placed onto my card base. And then it just looks like, so then they're not like hanging, you know, on air. Now those would have also looked cute being stamped right off the top, coming down from the top of the card as well, to make it look like they were dropping, which would have looked really cool as well. So you have a lot of choices when it comes to the stamps, but I love these smaller stamps. There's so much you can do with them. For the next one, this is by Tailored Expressions, and this is called Bubble Greetings, and it's simply called Jingle. I loved the packaging and the colors they used. They kind of went with a green and a red, or like a pinky color. So I just wanted to pull in some really, really different colors. The paper that I'm using here, and I'm stamping with my Amalgam ink again by Gina K, but the ink that I'm using, or the cardstock, I'm sorry, the cardstock that I'm using here is by Strathmore. It is my absolute go-to cardstock to when I do my colored pencils, and that's what I'm using for this, colored pencils. It's a mixed media paper actually, but it is very heavyweight. It's like a nice cardstock. Now they have this. This comes in toned gray, toned tanned, and toned blue when it comes to the mixed media. Now they also have a colored pencil series, but it's a lot thinner. It's very thin. But even, and when you touch this, it's like, okay, well, this is smooth. She's got to be crazy because she keeps talking about tooth. I'm always talking about tooth with colored pencils and watercolor. But it does have a tooth. It's just a finer tooth. I love the fact that whether it's the tan, the blue, or the gray, it's got this heather look to it. And I just love the way the colored pencils look on it. I know others use the Nina, whether it's the Desert Storm or the white for their colored pencils. I just get a very odd feeling when I use that for my colored pencils. It's very odd. I'm using two colors. Let's get back to this card here. I kind of went off the topic there. There's my Gavin. So I'm using two colors when it comes to each of the pencils. But I really like the play on the colors. I do love, of course, vintage, the traditional colors when it comes to Christmas. But I also do love, when making my cards, you know, making those cards with these brighter colors, the pinks, the greens. I mean, I love the bright red and the lime green and white. I think those colors are awesome when they're together. I do love this blue and this green and this pink. I think it just, you know, kind of makes that card pop. I am coming in with a gray just to give those bells some shading, because trying to get them to look silver. But again, just adding that shading to it to give the illusion. I will come in, and again, only used 2 colors, 2 shades, you know, just to get, because again, one colored pencil will give you so many number of shades. So you remember, I suffer from the I must have every color. I'm sure other people do, but you don't need to have every single color, okay? Because you can get so many from it, and it's due just to the pressure. I came in with my Emboss It pen and just added some scratchy lines to the bell to make it look like a gold ribbon was coming around it. I've cut my 2 mats. My blue is 4x4. The white underneath is 3 7/8 by 3 7/8. And then, of course, that gray cardstock was cut 3 3/4 by 3 3/4. I'm going to prop the gray with some double-sided foam tape. Now, this double-sided foam tape that I'm using is by Uline. It's at a great price point. You get a lot, but you do need a pokey tool or a picky thing to get to get the release paper off. It's not release paper friendly. I really struggle with it. But I found using my tool-in-one with Spellbinders really does the trick. Just make sure that you clean off the tip of your pokey tool, or else you'll get glue on everything else. Because it's very strong. It's wonderful. But again, it is very strong. So the next card, and this will be our last, I absolutely fell in love with this Marion Bright from Honeybee. Again, it's a smaller stamp set at a great price point, and I just think that there is so much that you can do with this. So I'm going to stamp the image onto my panel, and then again, and this still is Bristol paper that we are using. Again, I did use Bristol paper for all of them. Wasn't quite sure if I was going to use the watercolor pencils for each image. Kind of made that decision as this video went along. I'm stamping this a couple times because I want the sentiment to be nice and bold. Now, in this video, and as I'm, well, violently shaking my camera there, whew, okay, we don't have to be that rough to clean our stamps, I'm just saying, but no stamps were hurt in this. Oh my goodness. So, and it just looks worse when you speed up the video. I love doing voiceovers. Okay, so to the coloring, we are using our colored pencils. I am using 2 shades. You can see that I'm just going through with the 1 shade, and then I'm just coming in from the base with the darker shades. Again, I am not too worried about this perfect blend because it is such a small area, but I did want the hint of a blend there. Again, one color of a pencil for each of these shades would have been plenty to do. Now, you've got so many choices when it comes to this. You can use glossy accents to go over each of those images. Maybe you don't have glossy accents. Maybe you don't have the patience for glossy accents to dry. But you could use the glitter You can put glitter in there. You could use glue and put glitter on top of that. I chose to come in with my Emboss It pen just a little bit and use clear embossing powder. That's going to give you the same effect as your, what do you call it? Wow. Your glossy accents. Now, you remember, if you put water droplets on a piece of paper and cover that with embossing powder and heat it, you're going to do the same thing. It's going to stick. So I'll have to try if a blender pen would work. You know, could you use a blender pen? It's wet. You would be able to put your embossing powder over that and heat set that. So again, we do have other ways to do those things so that you don't have to have all of these gadgets. But for us card makers or paper crafters, you know, those gadgets are like our toys. You know, we're like that 2-year-old where, okay, well, we have to have that, and we have to have that, and we have to have that. I'm here to say, though, no, you don't need everything. And again, you don't need to use these stamp sets that I'm using. Dig into your stash, and you can create simple 4x4 cards. Again, if that's what you're looking for mass production. This set does have a die that's sold separately, so I did use that to cut out the image, and the die also has the words too, so you can die cut those as well and have fun layering those up from what was stamped. I've created my bats. Again, the red mat was actually cut 3 7/8 by 3 7/8, and the green mat was actually cut 3 3/4 by 3 3/4. And now I'm going to prop up my die cut image for the center. Now it will be set off to the side, of course, to set it up on an angle. I'm okay if things are at an angle. There's only certain things that I'll make sure are straight. Again, I want to have fun creating. I don't want to pull out a ruler and worry about it. I'm going to come in with more of those jewels. Again, this is just a pot that I have of them, but these are actually iridescent, and I think they are great. So those are the 5 cards that we created. Again, dig into your stash to create a smaller card. If sometimes you think you're intimidated, even if it's a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 size, if you think you have to fill that out, maybe 4x4 cards are the perfect thing for you. They will stretch out your card stock. They will stretch out your supplies that you have because of the small nature. Again, that's what this is about, finding other ways to use what's already in your stash. But of course, everyone is curious, you know, what these items are. So as always, the products that I used, as long as they're still available, will be listed down below in my video description. And if I can't find it, I will put a note on there apologizing that I'm no longer able to find that product. If you have any questions, please make sure you leave those down below as well, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Again, this was day 3, so we are just starting. And remember, it's going to show all kinds of different ways to use paper. It's not just going to be cards. But it's going to be garland, it's going to be cards, it's going to be tags, it's going to be ornaments, it's going to pull in a junk journal, it's going to pull in techniques. So again, just keep an eye out for which one that you're looking at. We're going to hit all kinds of things. Some videos will be this short. Alright, well that's long. But some of them will be even longer, making sure you see everything. Everyone enjoy. Continue to stay safe and healthy, but most of all, just for a little bit each day, always be creative. Till next time, guys.